Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Pascal Toutel, Business Development Manager here at Vixio Gambling Compliance, based in London. And I'm here today with Mackenzie, Senior Analyst from our Regulatory Research team. Hello, Mackenzie.
Hi.
So, first, an introduction. For anyone who isn't aware, Vixio is a leading RegTech company with offices both here in London and Washington, DC, serving both the gambling and payments industries. We are a trusted source of independent, authoritative, and actionable regulatory intelligence for compliance, regulatory, strategy, and business development professionals in highly regulated industries undergoing rapid and radical change. We deliver comprehensive, time-sensitive, and actionable intelligence on the payments and gambling compliance, covering more than 180 jurisdictions across the globe, organized by product or service type. Now, in today's webinar, we'll be looking at and showing you how to use the anti-money laundering comparative overview tool, which is one of the many tools available to Vixio Gambling Compliance subscribers and which exclusively covers North America. Firstly, to set the scene, we'll explain what the AMLCOT is, how it works, and where its content comes from. Then we'll use the tool to run through some comparisons of AML regulations which apply to online gambling across various jurisdictions. Throughout this, Mackenzie and I will share some ideas and have a conversation about the differing measures taken across North America. And finally, we'll close with some audience questions at the end. So let's make a start. From the Vixio homepage, here on your screens now, allow me to quickly explain how you'll find the AML comparison tool. From here and via my tools section in the top right-hand corner of the screen, you'll find the AMLCOT, amongst other time-saving aggregation tools such as the report builder and the market assessment tool, which are designed to supplement the in-depth proprietary reports provided on the core platform. Mackenzie, before we dive in, it'd be great if you could explain a little bit about the tool and why it was created.
Sure. So the Anti-Money Laundering Comparative Overview Tool, or the AMLCOT as we call it, provides you with a clear and concise picture of key current AML measures for online gambling, including online sports betting, across North America in a simple, easy-to-read format. In North America and in the United States especially, it's common to see a patchwork of regulations that vary from region to region, so the tool is designed to enable you to quickly assess AML requirements across multiple jurisdictions in a single view. Although AML regulations are not as fast evolving as those covering advertising and responsible gambling, Vixio's tracking and analyzing of global enforcement actions reveals significant fines for AML compliance failures. For example, in January 2024, MGM Grand and the Cosmopolitan of Las Vegas casinos entered into a combined $7.45 million settlement agreement to resolve an investigation into alleged money laundering and violations of the Bank Secrecy Act. In September 2024, Wynn Las Vegas forfeited $130 million for criminal AML allegations. For now, these enforcement actions are isolated to the casino sector. However, they can provide actionable insight for online operators to proactively understand and comply with AML obligations and to mitigate the risk of regulatory fines and other penalties associated with AML failures.
Okay, great. Thanks for explaining that background, Mackenzie. And first of all, what you'll notice is that Vixio provides a definition when hovering over a parameter. For example, here under player verification, and this would explain exactly what we mean by each term. Mackenzie, again, can you explain a little bit about the parameters and how the information in the tool is kept up to date?
Yeah, so when creating the comparative AML tool, Vixio's team of analysts compiled a list of some of the most prominent AML restrictions implemented in the online gambling and betting markets in North America. Our research of the AML regulations helped shape the parameters we've chosen to highlight in this tool. For example, during our research, we noticed a majority of jurisdictions require operators to employ mechanisms to limit or suspend player accounts when illegal or suspicious activity, including money laundering, is suspected. In terms of keeping the information up to date, we do have a team of regulatory analysts at Vixio who serve as subject matter experts in gambling compliance and regulations. The analysts monitor the jurisdictions that we cover on an ongoing basis to check for any changes in regulations and requirements. We use a variety of tools to do this, from legislative monitoring services to AI-enabled monitoring of key regulatory events to ensure that nothing is missed. So when a new regulation is enacted or legislation takes effect, our team of analysts update the intelligence on our platform in real time. This means that if a regulatory change occurs that triggers an update to the comparative AML tool, a country report, or really any other piece of regulatory content on the platform, the team is instantly getting to work on updating the report to ensure our customers are always viewing content that is accurate, comprehensive, and timely.
Brilliant. Thanks, Mackenzie. So to kick things off, I thought we'd start by taking a look at the North America online casino space, which you can access via this tab that I'm hovering above here. Before we get into it, Mackenzie, is there anything noteworthy that sticks out immediately for you?
Yeah, so looking at this comparative table here, the first thing you'll notice is that out of all the North American jurisdictions analyzed in the online casino portion of the tool, only one jurisdiction, Michigan, has all 9 of the requirements monitored by the tool. A handful of additional states, as you'll see, Connecticut, Delaware, New Jersey, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia, have at least half of the 9 requirements monitored.
Okay, cool. So before we sort of jump into some of the states you just mentioned, let's say you wanted to examine transaction monitoring and reporting requirements, for example, within some of those markets that you mentioned. Firstly, you can see that the parameter defined by Vixio is currently as a requirement for operators to have internal controls to identify suspicious transactions and an obligation to notify and report suspicious transactions or activity to the relevant authority. Now, if I click in the parameter here on the left-hand side and compare some of the jurisdictions that Mackenzie just mentioned, and I press compare, what you'll see on your following screen are the 3 states that we just described. Now, for Pennsylvania, where it says yes to transaction monitoring and reporting, what you'll see to the right-hand side of that is the citation to the regulation and direct links to the source that are then provided here within this table. Mackenzie, what is the significance of some, but not all of the covered online casino jurisdictions having at least half of the 9 requirements monitored?
Yeah, great question. So just 8 North American jurisdictions have legalized and regulated online gaming, with Nevada offering online poker. As you can see from the comparative table here, the requirements vary across these regions as regulators have adopted an individual approach to AML compliance, as they have done historically with any gambling regulations. So even the AML requirements for states in close proximity are varied and are not uniform or consistent. This disparity across these jurisdictions emphasizes the importance of a deep understanding and a nuanced approach to AML compliance to ensure proactive compliance in each individual jurisdiction. This is especially important for operators that are active in or looking to enter 2 or more of the regulated online casino markets, as the level of AML compliance will differ depending on the jurisdiction.
Okay, that's great insight, Mackenzie. Thanks so much. The tool also covers mobile sports betting, which is a separate table from online casinos. So as per the tab here, let's shift over to that for a moment.
Yes. So in North America, online casinos and online betting are often regulated via 2 different sets of laws and regulations, with some states regulating both online casinos and online sports betting. So the comparative overview separates the sectors out into 2 different tables for ease of reference and comparison.
Okay, and I see that there are a lot more jurisdictions are covered under mobile sports betting, 31 to be exact, Mackenzie. And what can you tell us about some of the varying approaches that we're seeing here?
So only 3 jurisdictions in North America have employed all of the 9 restrictions monitored by the tool. That is Maine, Michigan, and Washington, D.C., whereas 7 states and Ontario have less than half of the restrictions monitored.
Okay. Ontario is a surprising one, I think. Anything notable about the restrictions there?
Yeah, so unlike advertising and responsible gambling regulations, Ontario's AML regulations are slightly less robust within the parameters we've identified for the tool. Ontario does require general risk-based policies and procedures to identify and prevent suspected money laundering activities. What is noticeably absent from the regulations, however, is a requirement for designated personnel to oversee an operator's AML policies and procedures. Interestingly, though, a highly anticipated review of AML laws in Canada is expected, although the timing is a bit uncertain with elections soon to come. So some stakeholders are hoping a reform will address more modern gaming activities, including online gaming and sports wagering. So it will be interesting to see if Ontario chooses to strengthen some of its AML requirements in absence of a more modernized federal framework.
Yeah, sure. That's really interesting. And I'm sure Vixio will be watching for any developments there. Now that we've got a good view of the table up on the screen now, let's take a look at a few states in comparison again. So let's say you wanted to know about multi-factor authentication requirements, for example. Firstly, the multi-factor authentication parameter is defined as the following. This is a requirement for operators to employ multi-factor authentication during the initial player verification and registration process. So again, if I click into multi-factor authentication here and click on a few markets that we want to consider here, so Kentucky, Massachusetts, and New Jersey, for example, and I press compare to bring up the three markets in one place. What can you tell us about what we're seeing here, Mackenzie?
So immediately what we're seeing here is a mixed approach to regulating AML in North America, and especially in the States, with approaches varying from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, as you can see across these three here. Massachusetts, which is one of the more strict states in terms of gambling regulations, does not explicitly require operators to employ MFA during the player registration and verification process. Similarly, Kentucky does not require MFA. However, New Jersey statutes require the use of MFA as the primary method for verifying a patron's Know Your Customer, or KYC, data prior to the creation of an account. New Jersey takes it a step even further by providing operators with KYC best practices and MFA best practices, as you can see here in reference. So you can see how AML is not a one-size-fit-all approach across North America, which means operators must be aware of these differences and ensure they comply with each jurisdiction's requirements.
That's great. Thanks so much, Mackenzie. So we really hope that you found our AMLCOT demo insightful and valuable today. But before we conclude, let's try and answer some questions which have come in from the audience during the session today. Question one, Mackenzie, for you would be, if regulations across AML change in Pennsylvania, for example, how are they updated on the platform? And what would a typical lead time look for subscribers to be updated?
Yeah, that is a great question. So our team of analysts at Vixio are continuously monitoring for regulatory changes using multiple monitoring sources and tools. So if AML regulations were added or amended in Pennsylvania, for example, we would first notify our subscribers through a regulatory update, which contains the must-know information as well as any primary sources for reference. The next step is we would update the Pennsylvania State Report as well as the AML tool, or the anti-money laundering comparative tool, to reflect those changes. So we typically aim for a 24 to 48 hour turnaround time in terms of updating our content on the platform in accordance with regulatory changes.
Great, thanks, Mackenzie. And leading on from that, the next question we have here is, how are AML developments tracked generally across the platform?
Yes, so AML developments are actually really easily tracked across our platform. We have a separate tab for regulatory updates on our platform. So using that page, you can filter by specialism and select the anti-money laundering specialism, as well as select geography if you wish. So you can look at AML regulations globally, or you can look at North America specifically, as we covered today. You can then view all AML-related developments on this page, starting with the most recent updates. So you have all that historical data in one place.
That's fantastic. That's great. And a final question, Mackenzie. Are there any federal level AML requirements in the US, and do we track these requirements?
Yes, there are federal level AML requirements. At Vixio, we maintain an anti-money laundering regulatory review, which provides an overview of federal laws that address money laundering and terrorism funding as they apply to gaming establishments across the US. So Vixio subscribers can use the report to understand federal level AML requirements, as well as stay informed of regulatory developments at the federal level.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Mackenzie. And thank you to everyone for sending in your questions this afternoon. And thanks for joining me today, Mackenzie. Your insight has been really, really valuable. We'll wrap up there. But if you do want to know anything else about Vixio's AML comparative overview tool, or if you're interested to discuss options for getting access to Vixio, then please do visit vixio.com or drop us an email at info@vixio.com. Alternatively, please feel free to get in touch with either myself or Mackenzie via LinkedIn by searching our names. But again, finally, I want to give a big thanks to Mackenzie for joining me today. Thank you for your insight, and thanks everybody for joining. Goodbye.
Thanks, Pascal.